Hello and welcome to video number 20 of the MegaMan series. In this video we're going to be building BombMan, our first robot boss. And this is actually kind of like the first video that leads us into boss fights. And to be able to have a boss fight, obviously you need to have a boss. So we're going to be building BombMan in this video. And let's take a look at what we're going to have at the end. So I'm just going to put myself in invincible mode here, and right now he's not going to do anything until I enable his AI. So let's take a look at one of his things. So when this first scene starts out and you actually end up facing this guy, he tosses the bomb up and catches it as part of his pose. So we're going to be building that little animation in. And then let's take a look at what happens when he's actually moving. So let's come down here, we're going to turn on the AI. Bring this back over. So he throws the bomb, and the bomb doesn't actually hit MegaMan, it lands kind of like in front of him. And from what I've noticed when he's actually in the actual original of the game, he throws anywhere between 1 and 3 bombs, leaning more towards the high number. And then after he does that, he just basically jumps. So I don't see any real pattern to how he jumps. He'll jump close, he'll jump far, and if he jumps on top of MegaMan, he'll basically jump away. So if he gets too close, he'll basically end up jumping. And then what we're going to do is what we haven't done yet in any of our enemies is actually when we shoot him, the flashing and the damage. So let's go follow this guy. So he gets close, and he jumps away and jumps away. Jumps away because we're getting too close to him. Now let's just take him out. And now actually let's take off. Now let's kill him real quick. There. So now he destroyed. And we took his weapon part. So let's do it one more time real quick. And we're going to do it so that we see what happens when MegaMan actually does get hit and take some damage. So let's go BombMan. Come down here, start his AI. And there, so we get hit by the bomb, we take damage. And we take the weapon part. So that's what we're going to have when we're finished with this video. So let's get started. Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look at a quick snip of a video playing against the actual BombMan so we can take a look at how he actually behaves. So basically he can throw anywhere between like 1 and 3 bombs, leaning more on the high side, which I don't know how they decide that, but I'm going to end up using a probability. So we'll do like 70% chance of throwing 3 bombs, 20% chance of throwing 2, and 10% chance of throwing 1. So we're going to build that into our BombMan. And the jumping around is kind of randomized. I don't know about the actual distances, but what we end up doing for this one is we're going to create 3 vectors that we choose from randomly. And then you'll also notice when he jumps around, his leg positions differ. So like he has kind of like 3 slots, kind of like forward, back. And so we're going to basically, depending on which direction he's going to be jumping, we'll pick, and how far, we're going to be picking which jump animation to use. And you can see when he gets hit, he flashes. And his bomb throwing basically always lands like right in front of MegaMan. It's never actually on MegaMan. So basically we're going to try and replicate that, and I think we've come, by the end of this video, we come to very close of producing almost a very good copy of BombMan. And so this is the previous project. At the end of video 19, I kind of left it where I forgot about the magnet beam weapon, and I also forgot, well, it's not that I forgot, we didn't have actual transparency built into our color swap shader. So there was actually a follow-up video that was after video 19, so if you haven't seen that, you might want to watch that. It's called color swap transparency and magnet beam. So it should be in the playlist somewhere. So you can go take a look at that if you've been following along and writing out the code as we've been going through each video. Then you're going to want to make sure you put those changes into your project before you go on to here. I mean, they're not dependent on anything, but you're going to want to have them in there before we get any further. So this is a previous project from video 19. We're going to just move this out of the way for right now. And first, what we're going to start with is there's some folders and organization that I want to do first. We're going to create some new folders for the enemies and stuff. We're going to kind of organize the project a little bit more because now the scripts and the prefabs and stuff are all kind of like, it's getting a lot now. So starting the animations, we're going to go into the enemies, and then we're going to create a folder called bosses. Because BombMan's our first boss. We'll probably end up maybe creating some more later. But this is just to get us started, because we're going to move on to other aspects of building out the game later. And then in here, we're going to create a folder called BombMan. And bear with me, this is it's a new laptop. I don't know if you've noticed, no more Windows 7, no more slow and clunky. So I'm kind of still getting used to the keyboard a little bit. And so I might make a lot of typing mistakes at first. Let's see here. Then we're going to need to go into prefabs, and then we're going to go into enemies, and then we're going to create a folder in here called bosses. Let's see. Yep. And in prefabs, we're going to make a folder called weapons. And let me see here. And then in scripts, we're going to make some folders in here too. So in scripts, we're going to make a folder called weapons also. And we're going to create a folder called enemies. And then in enemies, we're going to create one called bosses. Okay, so let's move some stuff around. Up here in the animations, I don't think we need to move anything yet because we don't have a boss yet. The rest of the stuff is already in enemies, which is fine. Prefabs, however, we already have weapons. That's what it was. I think I renamed it. So actually, you can just nuke that. I renamed it from, let's delete that. Yes. So we're going to rename projectiles to weapons. I wasn't creating it. Because we're going to create a new one called bomb. So we need to make a prefab bomb, which we're going to do. And then in scripts, let's see here. We're going to take Big Eye, Blaster, the enemy controller, let's see here, Killer Bomb, Mambu, Peppy, Screwdriver. Yeah, all these are going to go into enemies. And then, let's see here, we need the bullet script is going to go into weapons, I believe. Yeah, I get it. I want to reload. And then, let's see. think that's everything. Let me double check. Hold on a sec. Alright, I think that's it. Alright, so next what we're going to do is, when we created the animation for MegaMan's explosion, I ended up calling it a player explode effect. And the thing about that is when you kill one of the robot bosses, it's kind of like the same explosion. So what we're going to do is we're going to rename it to the Explode Effect 3. So let's change that. So we're going to call it Explode Effect 3. And then you're going to go in here, and then here you're going to rename the animation controller. Boom. So there. So we're going to call it Explode Effect 3, and if we go into our prefab player and look at MegaMan, it still says Player Explode 1, which it shouldn't. I should have renamed it. Explode. Let's see here. Layers. No, not. Oh, anyway, we can just re-put it. Oh, that's fine. It's the prefab, not the animation. So then you're going to go into the prefabs and rename it here. Duh. And then you're going to rename the prefab. So in the prefab, yeah, that should probably get renamed too, and I totally forgot about this script, but you know, it's not a big deal. I could take care of that later. It still works. So then if you go over to the player and open up the player, now it's Explode Effect 3. So, and we're not going to worry about the script that's attached. And technically, I forgot about that. I didn't even see that part. But this should actually be renamed to Defeat Effect 3 or something like that. But whatever. We'll just leave it alone for now because I'm going to upload the project and I don't want to have to redo it. So it is what it is for now. All right. So now we're going to move on to importing the graphics that we need for our BombMan. So go over to the graphics folder, and then we're going to right click and import a new asset, and you can go over to GitHub, links in the description of the video, and go over to my GitHub and go look for number 20 for this video, and then you can get the files. There's only 2 files. And that doesn't look right. It's not supposed to be green. Hold on a second. Actually, I think it's fine. I think they just set the green to transparent. I can't remember. Anyway, so we're going to import the bomb, and we're going to import BombMan. Yeah, it is transparent. Okay, good. Okay, starting with the bomb. So let's go over and highlight our bomb here. Okay, so sprite mode is going to stay at single. Pixels per unit is going to stay at 100. We're going to change the filter to point no filter like usual, and no compression. Then you can apply that. Then go into the sprite editor, and right now the pivot's in the middle, but we want the pivot in the bottom center. So this is where the pivot's going to be for the bomb. So then you can apply that and close out of that. And then the next one is going to be BombMan himself. So we're going to select BombMan. Now he's going to be multiple, and point no filter, no compression, apply that, and then we're going to do the edit. So on here, what we're going to do is go up here to the slice option. I'm going to change the pivot to the bottom, just a bottom, and you can just say delete existing and then slice. So now we should have all of our BombMans cut out and this bomb here at the end. So what we're going to do then is we're just going to rename these. So we're going to say bomb. So we'll say BombMan – idle and that's going to stay bottom center. So some of these are actually going to change the pivot. So that's BombMan, idle. The next one's going to be BombMan pose. So that's his pose, and that's going to stay bottom center. This one's going to be jump 1. So that's going to be BombMan jump 1, and that's going to actually be different. So we're going to customize that. And the pivot's actually going to be down here, like between his feet. So that's going to be at 0.35. This one here, that's jump 2. So jump 2, that's also going to be different at custom. And that's going to be at 0.6. So about right there in the middle between his feet. Now this one is going to be jump 3, and that's also going to be custom, and that's going to be at 0.35, so it's like in the middle between his feet. And then this one here, I'm going to say is going to be throw 1, so BombMan throw 1, and that pivot's going to be custom. And that's going to be at 55. And then this one is going to be BombMan throw 2. And that pivot is going to be a custom. And that's going to be 625. And then this one, we're just going to say is BombMan bomb. And then we're going to leave that alone. So we should have idle, the pose, jump 1, jump 2, jump 3, throw 1, throw 2, and the bomb. So you can apply all that. Now the thing about this is we don't actually use this bomb because for whatever reason this bomb is actually not the same size as this bomb. And that's why we imported a second graphic for the bomb, where that actually is going to be detached from his hand and be flying through the scene and exploding. So this bomb we don't actually use at all. So we're going to get out of there. So now we should have all these BombMen. There's the bomb which we're not going to use, and we have the idle, the jumps, the pose, and the throwing. So that's that. We can get out of there. So we're going to save all that. So the next thing what we're going to do is we have script changes that we need to make. So we're going to go over to the scripts. And the first one, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the item script. Now, there's probably going to be more changes to the item script later when we actually collect the weapon part, which will be part of the boss fight. When we collect the weapon part and be able to activate the hyper bomb and any other weapon that we collect from a defeated boss. But for right now, I noticed when I was building this out and when he exploded, the weapon part wasn't showing up for some reason. And it turned out it had to do with this destroy delay here. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix that. So by doing that, we're going to get rid of this if that surrounds this. And then we're going to come down here to the set destroy delay part here. And then we're going to say destroy delay, right? That's what I called it? Yeah, destroy delay. So we're going to set destroy delay to the value of delay. And then we're going to say if the delay is greater than 0. So we're going to actually do it inside of here instead of up there in the start. So let's save that. What the heck? Why does it keep doing that? Anyway, hold on a sec. Okay, so we're going to do this instead. So that's the end of that script. So the only changes we're going to make to the item. So now when we destroy them, the weapon part will actually show up. Because what we end up doing is we put the destroy delay to 0 so that it doesn't disappear after a certain time. So we had to fix that. So Next, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the player controller, and if you don't have that open, then you can just open it from here. And we're going to add some things now. We don't make use of what we're going to add to the weapon struct yet. I was actually deciding whether I wanted to include this as part of the video of giving MegaMan the hyper bomb, but I decided it's going to turn into way too long of a video. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to put in this just so that it matches what I've uploaded to GitHub. And then we're going to actually take care of this in the next video after this. And so what we're doing is we're elaborating on this to add in some prefab and some variables of how much energy that the weapon will consume and how much damage it can cause. So those are the only changes that we'll be making to this for now. So we don't use them right now, but I just want to put them so that they match up what's uploaded. So but we will be using them later. And then next what we're going to do is we're going to go to the explosion script. We need to make a change in that. So the explosion script, which is this. So now the explosion script is now, since MegaMan is going to be able to use the bomb, we need to be able to see who we're going to be applying damage to. So to do that, much like we did in one of the other scripts, I think it had to do with the bullet. So we're going to check, we're going to do some tag checking. So we're going to check for collision with tags. So collide with tags. So we're going to create a new variable. And we're going to default this to the player tag. So, and then we need another public function here because our bomb is going to basically make use of this. So it says, oh, okay, I want you to basically apply damage to this, whatever contains this tag. So we're going to say with collide with tags. And we're going to say this. Okay. And then this, we're going to, this comments is fine. It's okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to just change this up just a tad. So we're going to say for each and string tag in collide with tags, and then we'll check the tag. Let's just move this. And then inside of here, we're going to say there's a switch on the tag. So we're going to have the enemy tag and the player tag. Now this player code, we can move this. This is basically the same. However, what I want to do is make sure the player is a null before we try doing anything with it. So let's move this. Now the enemy is going to be, we pretty much kind of copy this actually. And then just change, this is actually going to be enemy controller, and this is going to be enemy controller. And then we don't have a hit side in the enemy, so we can get rid of that. And then there. So save that. So those are the changes that we're going to make to the explosion script so that we can tell the explosion script which tag we're looking for to apply damage to. So we just add this in here, this collide with tags variable array, and then so we can set it from wherever as a public function, and then we're going to see which tag that we can apply the damage to, and we're going to basically switch through this the for each, and then see which tag it is and apply damage appropriately, which is the appropriate code. So that is the end of the explosion script changes. And then this is going to bring me on to, let's see, which one we want to do next. I guess what we can do is we can work on the, there's some changes that we got to make with the enemy controller. So let's do the enemy controller, and then we'll do the utility function. So that's in enemies now, and then the enemy controller. So we need to add a new namespace that we're going to use, and this is going to be Unity Engine events. So we're going to add in the ability to check for some events. And we're going to come down here after the explode effect prefab, and we're going to define a public float, and we're going to call it explode effect destroy delay, and we're going to default it to 2 because that's what we've been doing. But before we move on using that, we're going to add a new header. And in our header, we're going to call it enemy events. Then we're going to say public Unity event. It's going to be take damage event, and then another Unity event. It's going to be called the defeat event. Let's make sure I spelled everything right. Yeah, defeat event. Right. So these two events are basically, we're going to add these into when our take damage function and our defeat function, so that we can attach functions to these events, and so that they'll be called. So we'll know when damage is being taken, and we'll know when the defeat happens. So we need this for our BombMan controller. So then we're going to go down to take damage, and inside of here, above this, we're going to say take damage event, and we're going to invoke. So basically, as soon as this function gets called, we're going to call this event, so that whatever is tied to this, it's going to get called as well, so that we know, oh, he's taking damage. Then down here, instead of this 2, which we hard-coded, we're going to basically set in our explode effect destroy delay instead. And then down here in our defeat, we're going to say defeat event and invoke, so that we know he got defeated, or anything that ties into this, so we know that the enemy was defeated. So this goes into, because these are all in the enemy controller, when we have the BombMan controller, we need to know when he's taking damage. We need to know that because we want to flash that little hurt, ouch bubble looking thing. We want to flash that so it shows he's taking damage. So we need to know when this is happening. So this is what we're doing. We're adding in these events to be able to, know when this stuff has happened. So we're going to save that. And last but not least, then we're going to go and add to our utility functions. And so where is that? Let's go back to here, and we're going to open up utility functions. And then we're going to come after this. And hold on a sec. Okay. So let me come over here. We're just going to pause this. So this is basically how we're going to be throwing our bomb. We use this. This is based off this video. the equation and everything. So this this video is basically, it talks about how to calculate the velocity using gravity and height and everything to determine where what the velocity ends up being for having a object end up in a certain spot. So BombMan throws his bomb and it lands in front of MegaMan. So we're basically going to be using this the equations derived from this video to be able to throw our bomb. So you can watch this video if you want. Here's the URL up here, and I'm just going to save time by just taking, this is basically a breakdown of what we're going to be using to throw the bomb. And I've actually made a couple adjustments to it by adding the height and the gravity to the actual function. And so we're just going to copy this and we're going to drop that in our project over here. So then we're going to save this. So this is what we're going to end up using to throw the bomb. And so if you want, you can go and check out this video and learn all about it. And then we're going to come back to this later. So if you want, I'm going to pause. You can pause it right here and type this out, or you can just go up to GitHub and go into the project and find the utility function and copy and paste it from there. And so then we're going to move on. Okay, so let's close. I'm going to go close this over here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a couple of scripts. So we're going to come back over to Unity. First, we're going to go into weapons. We're going to create a new C# script, and we're going to call it bomb script. So this is going to basically be controlling our bomb. And then inside of enemies and bosses, we're going to create a script. And it's going to be called BombMan controller. And so we're going to open both of those up. So let's start with our bomb script. And then we're going to open up our BombMan controller. So we'll start with the bomb script. And let's see, layers. And before we start doing the bomb, we're going to add a new layer, actually. That's going to basically be for weapons that don't have any, where enemies and players will not collide with, but as triggers. So let's just go pull MegaMan up, for instance. We're going to go over to this layer thing here. We're just going to say add layer, and on our layer 12, we're going to say weapon. And now it should be in the list, and there it is. And then we're going to modify the collision matrix. So we're going to go to edit, project settings, go to physics 2D, and then down here, we're going to say player is not going to collide with the weapon, and nor will the enemy or items or weapons upon weapons. So we're going to take all these 4 checkboxes off. So this is what our matrix should end up looking like. So then we can close out of that, and let's save our changes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make the bomb. So to make the bomb, let's get this over here. Let's just shrink this up. We don't need so much of it right now. And then we'll bring more of this here, and it's probably going to pop up over here. So let's create a new empty, and we're going to call it bomb. And then you can reset the transform. And then our bomb is going to be on the weapon layer, and our bomb is going to be 1.5 and 1.5 scale. And then we need to add some items here, so we're going to add in a circle collider, and we're going to add in rigid body 2D. And we're going to add in a sprite renderer. And we're going to take our bomb script and put that in there. And we're going to make some changes to it, and then we'll get some properties that we're going to apply to it. So off of our bomb, we're going to create a child. And this is going to be called hitbox, and our hitbox is going to be on the default layer, I believe. And so let's just move this down a little bit. Okay, so we need our sprite. So go into graphics, the bomb, and before we do that, scroll down. We'll put our bomb there, and then we can reset this, and we're going to bring this into 6, so it's a little bit on the inside, and it's going to be a trigger. We're going to change it to kinematic, and its collision is always going to be continuous and never sleeping, and we're going to lock the Z. And then we already got the bomb in here, which we reset, and then our layer is going to be 10. And then, let's see, and on the child, which is the hitbox, we're going to add a circle collider onto this as well. And that is also going to be a trigger, and it's going to be 0.06 and 0.06, the radius, and that should be it for the properties of our bomb. So let's save our changes, and then we're going to start coding our bomb script. So actually we can get rid of that. Okay, our bomb script. So we need events in our bomb. So first thing we're going to import is the Unity engine events. We need to know when our bomb explodes, so we're going to use events for that. And then at the top of our class here, we're going to add in an animator. And then a circle collider, which we're going to just call Circle 2D, and then a rigid body, which we're going to say RB2D, and then a sprite renderer, which we'll just call Sprite, and then we're going to create an event, so Unity event, and then we're going to call it an explosion event. And then we need a bunch of properties for our bomb. So we need a bool for starters called start timer. So when MegaMan ends up throwing the bomb doesn't explode as soon as it hits the ground. It actually bounces and then it stops, and then there's a little bit of a delay, and then it explodes. So we need a timer to basically do that. And so we're going to call that explode timer, and the flag of starting the timer. And then we're going to create a header. And this header is going to be called bomb damage. Inside of bomb damage, we're going to create a serialized field. And then it's going to be a type integer, and it's going to be called contact damage. And that's going to be equal to nothing. So these values I'm going to be using are going to be the defaults as if MegaMan is using the bomb right off the bat. So instead of BombMan, because MegaMan is more than likely going to be using it more than BombMan, because you're just going to face BombMan once, you know, and then MegaMan, once he acquires Hyperbomb, you're going to be switching between it. So we're just going to default the properties to what MegaMan would end up using. And so then we need explosion damage, and that's going to be equal to 4. And then another header. And then this is going to be called audio clips. And it's going to be a serialized field of type audio clip. And it's going to be called explosion clip. So we'll play the sound when the bomb explodes. And then we're going to do another header. And this header is going to be called timers and collision. And we're going to create 2 for that. So it's going to be a serialized field. And the first one's going to be a float. And it's going to be called explode delay. We're going to default it to 3 seconds. And then another serialized field. And this is going to be of type string. And it's going to be collide, because our bomb can collide with the player or it can collide with BombMan himself. So we're going to say collide with tags. But in this case, we're going to leave it empty. We're not defaulting it to anything. Originally, when I was writing this, when I defaulted it to enemy, it was triggering the explode on BombMan because it was initializing and the start was running. So we're going to start it with nothing to avoid that. And if you forget to set it, then it won't explode against anybody. And next one's going to be positions in physics. And in positions in physics, we're going to have several serializes in this. First one is going to be gravity, a float. And then another serialized. And then this one's going to be a float called height, and we're going to default that to 1. And you can change that if you'd like through the inspector or through the function, the public function that we create later. And then there's going to be another serialized here. And this is going to be a float, and it's going to be called target offset. And the target offset is basically if you want to have from where the player is in front or behind, like basically an offset, so it doesn't exactly hit on him, so you can subtract that distance or add to that distance depending on how you use it. And then we're going to have another serialized field here, and this is going to be of a vector 3, even though we're working with vector 2s mostly, but the function for dealing with calculating the velocity and the launch data and everything like that wants a vector 3, so we're just going to default to vector 3 for this, even though we don't use the z. So it's going to be called source position, which is basically going to be BombMan's hand or MegaMan's, depending on how we're using it. And then another serialized field for vector 3. And then this is going to be called target position. And the target position on that is going to basically be MegaMan's position. If MegaMan's throwing the bomb, he's just going to have a predefined velocity for throwing the bomb. So he's not actually going to try and launch it and land in front of anybody. He's just going to throw it with a certain velocity, and that's just what it's going to be each time he throws it. And then it'll bounce and then you blow up after so long. And then we need another serialized. And this one's actually going to be a vector 2. And this is going to be called bomb direction. This is basically for when MegaMan's throwing it. We're going to default to vector 2.right, so because he's always coming from right to left, but we're going to be able to switch that depending on which direction he's facing later, but we're going to just default it to right. And then another serialized field of vector 2, and that's going to be called launch velocity. And the launch velocity is, like I was saying, how much MegaMan's going to be able to throw that bomb. And then we're going to say it's a vector 3. But we're only going to supply the x and the y. And we're going to say 2 and for the x and 1.5 for the y. And I was toying around with these values, and this is what I came up with, thinking that it actually looks pretty good when he throws it. And of course you can mess around with that if you'd like and try different values. Then we're going to add another header here. We're almost done with all these fields. And the next one's going to be called materials and prefabs. So materials and prefabs, the first one is going to be a serialized of type physics material 2D. And this is where we're going to assign our bounce material. So we don't actually have a bounce material yet, but we'll be creating it after we're done with this when we assign it in the inspector. And then another serialized field, that's going to be a game object, and that's going to be the explode effect prefab. So those are all of our fields that we're going to be using for this class. So then what we need is an awake. So void awake, get rid of that. Oops. And so in the awake, what are we going to do? We're going to say animator. We're going to get the component of the animator. And then we're just going to copy this and edit it. So 1, 2, 3. And so we need the circle 2D with the circle collider 2D, and then the RB 2D, which is rigid body, which is the rigid body 2D. And we need the sprite, which is the sprite renderer. There. So now we have a handle on all our components. Now in our start, by default, we are going to have our circle collider as a trigger. We're going to default that to true, and we're also going to default the rigid body is kinematic to true. So when we have it as a trigger and as kinematic, basically kinematic, you're going to define the movement of the object through code instead of physics determining it when it's dynamic. So these bombs are basically going to be not going to have any substance per se to start with, and once they get launched, then they're going to be converted to dynamic and not triggers. They'll actually be able to collide with things. Well, whether it's a trigger or not, it just depends on how you code it. But the dynamic for the physics is going to be turned off, and we turn off the trigger part because we want it to be able to hit the ground and bounce and stuff, so it needs volume. And that's why we created a hitbox for the bomb. So the hitbox is actually going to stays as a trigger, and that's what's going to determine whether it's touching anything or not. So that's where we're going to be testing for that. So we need this bomb is always going to start out as a trigger and as kinematic until we change it. So I just want to explain that real quick. So now inside of update, we're going to check if the start timer has been set. The start timer is basically, okay, bomb's launched. If we don't want it to explode right away, then we basically count down before it will explode. So then inside here, we're just going to say explode timer, and we're going to minus time.delta time. And then we're going to check if the explode timer is less than or equal to 0. And then if it is, we're going to say start timer is going to be equal to false. And we're going to call a function we haven't defined yet called explode. And so that'll, not explode timer, just plain explode. So the explode function, we're going to define that's going to determine whether the bomb's exploded or not. So now we're going to have a whole bunch of publics that we need to define. So what I think I might do here is I might just pause this and then you can type them out, because this is going to take quite a while actually. So let me go back over here real quick and then I'll be right back. Alright, let's go back over here. Okay, so you can type these out one by one. So I'm just going to go through them because it's going to take too long. This video is already getting really long as it is, and we haven't even gotten to BombMan yet. So public void contact, so set contact damage value, and we're going to pass it. So you're going to pass in the value of contact damage. So this is when he touches the enemy or the player without the explosion. So this is just a touch for how much damage there is. Then you have a public void here of set explosion damage value, and that's basically when the bomb does explode. That's the damage it'll cause. So there's two different kinds of damage. There's when you're just touching the bomb and when the bomb actually explodes. So these are those two. The next one is the explosion delay. So public void set explosion delay. And we're going to pass in how much of a delay. And then you're going to take that and you're going to pass it over to our class variable explode delay. So this is basically how long it'll stay on the ground before it explodes. And then you're going to have set velocity, vector 2. So vector 2 velocity. So this is when if we don't have a target, then we're assuming that MegaMan's the one throwing the bomb because he doesn't use a target. So you can pass in the velocity, and that's going to get set into launch velocity here. So it's a function called set velocity. Then you're going to have one here that's called set direction, and the vector 2 of direction. So this is going to basically be determining, oh, am I throwing it right, am I throwing it left? If it's left, it'll be like -1 on the x, and then it's going to take that and times that by the direction or the velocity of what you're going to throw it, and then it's going to determine whether the bomb's going to go right, if it's going to go left. And this is when we're not using the function or the formula for calculating the launch data. This is just basically a plain old throw. Then you have the height, which is actually used by the launch data. So you can, right now we defaulted it to 1f, so or just to 1. So this is going to be the height. So you can override that if you want by using this function to update the value in the class variable. So this is used in the launch data calculation. Then you have this one here, which is set source position. And now the source is basically where the bomb is going to originate being thrown from. So this is typically, in this case, if we're using it with BombMan, it's going to be his hand. So we're going to actually define a game object that's just going to be the position of where it's going to be launching from his hand. So that's actually going to be the source position in this case. Then we have a set target position, which is also a vector 3. And the target position is where the bomb is going to end up going. And so that's where you got basically point A going to point B with the height, and it's going to calculate the velocity required to basically make that arc and get to that landing point. And so that's where the target's going to be, is where it's going to end up after it's launched. Then you have a set target offset, which is not actually part of that video or that formula, so we add this in here, so we don't want it to actually end up right on MegaMan. So if we have this offset that we can use, this is going to be basically where we can plus or minus from the target, so it doesn't exactly land on it, and we always have BombMan, his bombs always land kind of like right in front of MegaMan. So we're going to basically short the target location by this offset. And then we're going to have this thing here that's a public void called bounces. And the bouncing is basically when MegaMan throws the bomb, because when he launches it, it bounces a little bit, it stops, and then there's a timer, and then boom, then it explodes. Where BombMan, he throws it, it doesn't bounce, it just explodes as soon as it hits the ground. So what we do here is with this bool, we check if it's true or false. If it's true, then we take our bounce material that we have in the inspector, and we apply it to the rigid body's shared material parameter here. Otherwise, we set it to null, meaning, okay, there is no shared material, so there are no more bounce material on it. Then what we have down here is set collide with tags, which is nothing new. We use this just in the explosion script. So you're going to take whatever tags that you want this bond to be able to collide with, and you set it to this collide with tags class variable here. So with that all said, hopefully you can pause it, rewind it, type all that out. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to define, actually, I'm going to copy and paste some more. So actually, hold on a moment. We're going to come back. Okay, so now we're back. We're going to go back over here. Okay, so our launch. This is the next function that we're going to create. So maybe I should do this from now on instead of having to type it all out. I can just type. You can type it out yourself or copy and paste it, and I'm just going to give the explanation because it'll save on a lot of time. So we're going to create another public function here called launch. Launch is going to be called to actually throw the bomb, and this is going to have two cases. If there is no target set, then it's going to be assumed that it's MegaMan throwing bombs, so we just use our launch velocity. We take the x velocity times the direction, so if it happens to be going left, it'll times the x by -1. If it happens to be going right, it'll just times by +1, and so no change really. And then what we do is we use rigid body add force with the velocity of impulse. So that's just throwing the bomb with the basic velocity. And what we do also when we launch this thing is we start out by just setting it's no longer a trigger and it's no longer kinematic. So we're giving it substance, and physics are going to determine how the bomb is going to travel. So with the velocity, it's going to calculate where how it's going to move through the space. Otherwise, you need, if it's on kinematic, then you have to basically calculate it through code and do move position and all that stuff. So we're going to check and see if target position is not equal to null, which means we set the target position. And so that if we've set it, then what we're going to do is we're going to see if gravity is equal to 0. And if gravity is not equal to 0, or if it is equal to 0, then we're going to override it. But otherwise, we'll use whatever we set in gravity. And honestly, we don't do anything different with gravity. That video uses a different gravity than what the default is, I believe, in Unity. But we don't for our game. So I just put this in here just instead of hard coding it, so it's always overridden. So if gravity is equal to 0, which means we didn't change the value of gravity, we're just going to take the current gravity y value on the physics engine and just set it into the variable. So now gravity has whatever the value of physics 2D gravity is. And if we were to actually go and look for that, let me see if I can remember where that is. It's actually right here in the same place where we have a collision matrix. So physics 2D under project settings, you can see gravity is actually negative 9.81 in our game space. So that's what the value is going to get passed over into that. So now we have gravity. Then we're going to see the bomb position is going to be equal to our source position. So that's going to be the hand if it's this is the case that's for BombMan's usage, this case here. So the source position, which is his hand position. The target position is where we want the bomb to get launched to. Now what we're going to do is if our target offset is not 0, then we're going to add it to the player position X here. So if it happens to be negative, it'll subtract. If it's positive, we'll add to it. And then what we do is we use in utility functions, which we created earlier, which is here, calculate launch data. So this displacement function ends up returning this launch data, which we get the velocity to be able to chuck our object. And if you wanted to actually leave, this is the time it'll take to actually reach that. So you can use this if you needed to, but we don't actually use it. We don't care how long it takes. So what we do is we pass in our values here, and then we get this initial velocity and we pass it to the rigid body velocity, so that'll, boom, launch our bomb. So that's the launch function. Now we're going to come down here, and then we need our explode. And then our explode is what we defined up here. So on our update timer, so boom, it goes explode. So what happens when we do explode? Explode, basically what we're going to do is we use our prefab, we instantiate a copy of that, and we store it in this game object called explode effect. And then much like all the other ones that we end up doing, we have the name of the prefab, which we've set over here. And then we're going to set our transfer position by the center of the sprite, which is basically the center of the bomb. And then what we're going to do here is our explosion script has those two public functions, one of them being the collide with the tags and the damage. So the collide with tags is going to be set, whatever we set into the bomb script is going to get passed over into the explosion script. So if we say we want this bomb script to explode on the player, then we're going to pass that over to the explosion script so it explodes against the player and detects the collision. Same with the explosion damage. Whatever value that we have here is going to get passed over to the explosion script. So now with this explosion, we basically hard code it to basically remove this explode effect after 2 seconds. So 2 seconds should be enough time for the explode effect 2 to run its course and disappear from the screen before we destroy the game object from the scene. Now here's the deal with this. We have the audio clip, right? So we play the explosion clip. So as soon as it lands and as soon as it explodes, kaboom. So we have a kaboom sound that gets played. Problem with that is once we destroy this game object, this is not going to have enough time to go. So we have our bomb. Let me rewind that real quick. This is the explosion effect that gets destroyed, but this actual bomb is still around. So we destroy the bomb, and you can destroy it immediately, so the bomb disappears from the screen, but then the explosion is left behind to play its course. Well, here's the problem. If you destroy this game object right away, then this sound clip is going to just make a little chirp, if even that. So you're never going to actually ever hear the explosion. So what we end up doing, or I end up doing, is that kind of it's a little bit, it's not really a hack, but it's just what you have to do to kind of keep the game object around just so that the sound will play out. Otherwise, you're going to have the sound play from some other source somewhere else that's still running in the game, and you don't want to have to do that. So what I end up doing is I end up actually just changing the sprite to clear, so the bomb goes invisible, but the game object is still around. And so this 1 second, it's basically going to remove itself after a second. So that should give it enough time for the explosion clip to play its sound. So it explodes. So it goes kaboom. A second later, then it'll destroy itself, and then it won't matter. And then down here, we call the explosion event evoke. So this is basically going to be whatever function that we tie to this, it'll get called so that we know, oh, our bomb just exploded. So we can act upon that when we need to. So that's basically our explode function here. Then we have our collision checking here. Now, there's two different cases on this. There's actually on collision enter 2D, and then we have on trigger enter 2D. On collision, we look to see if it checks if we're touching the ground. So this is where the bomb, when it has substance, comes into play. So we're checking to see if now collision is when the object has substance and it's not a trigger. So that's how you're going to use on collision. So if you ever need to check if you're colliding with something and it's not a trigger, you use this on collision enter or exit or stay. So that's that. But then down here, it's when it's a trigger that you're checking. So we're checking to see if the bomb has collided with the ground layer. If the bomb has collided with the bomb layer or with the ground layer, then we're going to see, oh, we're going to look and see if start timer has been set and the explode delay is greater than 0. So if the explode delay is greater than 0, then that means, oh, we must want it to delay. Because if you leave it at 0, then we're going to assume it's going to explode right away. So if we want it to explode with a delay, we start the timer, we set the value, and then the update function will take care of the rest after that. Now, obviously, if that's not the case and the explode delay is actually equal to 0, then we want to explode right away as soon as it touches the ground, which is here. So that's when the object has substance. The trigger, which is the hitbox in this case, the hitbox is going to be looking for enemy or player and the collide with tags. So this is just like our explosion script where we're looking for enemy and player, and then we're going to apply damage, and it's going to be contact damage, where this is explode damage. So that's the two cases and how we use it with our bomb. So starting back at the top, it's a really long script. So these are all the variables that we end up using to be able to make this thing work, and then we start in the awake, and then we have the start where we started out as a trigger and kinematic, then our update to see if it explodes or not, if there's a delay, and then all these public functions to be able to set the parameters if we need to from other sources, launching it and exploding if it collides with the ground, and if it touches, and if the hitbox touches one of these tags. So that's basically our explosion, our bomb script. So now with that done, we're going to go back over here and look for our bomb, which is here. And now we have all this stuff here. So by default, we said contact damage is going to be 0, but explode damage is going to be 4. Now we need the actual explosion clip. So the explosion clip, let's lock that real quick. So we're going to go to audio, sounds, and our explosion clip is actually number 13 for explosion. So oops. We're going to take number 13 here and then go drop that in the audio. And by default, we want to delay it. We want to explode with 3. By default, we're not going to actually do any tags, so we're just going to ignore that. Gravity, leave it 0, so it pulls it from the system. Height of 1, target offset's fine. No source, no destination, no target at start. And then the direction, we're going to leave it at so it's going right. Launch velocity, we leave it alone. Now the bounce material and the explode effect prefab. So the bounce material. So what we're going to do is over in our materials folder, we're going to go there, we're going to right click, we're going to create, and then it's going to be a physics material 2D. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call this bomb bounce. So in bomb bounce, we can actually unlock this over my lesson from last time. Our bomb bounce is actually going to have a friction of 0.1 and a bounciness of 0.5, and it gives it like a couple bounces before it stops moving, which is good, but you can toy around with these values if you'd like. So if you don't like the ones that I've set, then you can change it so your bomb bounces even more or even less, and things like that. So then we're going to go back over to our bomb here, lock that. We'll go back down here at the bottom. So our bounce material is going to be our bomb bounce. So we're going to drag that there. And then our explode effect, which is when our bomb explodes, is going to be under prefabs, effects, and this is going to be the medium size explosion. So this is the same explosion the killer bomb uses. So we're going to save that. And now our bomb is done. So this is our bomb. And then we're going to take our bomb and we're going to save it as a prefab. And this is going to be under weapons. And we're going to drag our bomb in there. Boom. So now we have a bomb prefab. Cool. So we can actually remove it from the scene now. Nuke that. We don't need it. And we can save our changes. So then, let's see what we're going to do next. Now we're going to actually move on to BombMan. The whole point of this video, right? Okay. So we're going to right click. We're going to create an empty. And we're going to reset this transform. And we're going to call it BombMan. Oops. Yeah, I told you, this keyboard is hard. I'm going to get used to it eventually. Okay, BombMan. Now our BombMan is what? Well, he's on the enemy, he's a tag enemy, and he's a layer enemy. So let's save that. And he's also 1.5 scale, 1.5, because all these images that we've been using are kind of small, so we bump them up 1.5 on the scale. So what we're going to do then is we need to add in the script. The script being the, where's that? Our enemy controller script, which is going to drop in our other components that are required, which is our animator, our box collider, our rigid body, our sprite renderer, and all the stuff that's already has to do with the enemy controller. So animator, we're going to have to come back to that later. Box collider we'll come back to in a minute. So we're going to come down here to actually do the sprite first. So let's go down to our graphics and find BombMan, not the bomb, but actually BombMan. We're going to use the BombMan idle as our default sprite. Boom. Oh, there he is. Look, he's nice big. And then on our box collider, we're just going to reset that so that here's our green box here. But we're going to change it to knock off 0.02 on all those. Boom. So now it's nice on the inside on the white or on the 1 pixel black square area. And so he is... let me see here. He's going to have solidness, so hold on one moment. Let me double check. And actually, before we start filling all that out, here's our events that we created, where we updated our script so we can add on our take damage event and a defeat event, which we will make use with this guy. So start with scripts, bosses. Let's put on our BombMan controller just so it's there. Okay. So starting at the top, sprite. Alright, so on the sprite, our layer order is going to be 10 like any other enemy in MegaMan. The rest of this stuff is fine. And then our box collider we already got, and which is going to have, he's going to have mass. He's going to be solid, so we know that he's not going to be a trigger. And then what we need down here is the rigid body. He's going to stay as dynamic, but he's continuous, he never sleeps, and we're going to lock his X, or I mean his Z, so we don't do anything with that. And then what we're needing to do is, so we added that enemy controller. Now the enemy controller, let's fill out some of these properties. Okay, his score, we're just going to default it, I mean I don't know. It doesn't really say, I have this website up here. It doesn't really say what his value is. It just says, okay, his health is just like MegaMan's, which is 28. But he's got 4 contact damage, 4 when his hyper bomb hits MegaMan, and the explosion is also 4. So if you touch the bomb, it's 4. If the bomb explodes on you, 4. And if you touch him, it's 4. So it's 4 across the board. So that means we don't really need that anymore now that we have that info. But his score points, I really don't know, because every time I play it, it seems like it's different. But I'm going to default him to 50,000. So he's worth 50,000 points. Okay. His health, as we saw, was 28. His contact damage is 4. Now, his explosion, when he explodes, we don't want him to actually damage MegaMan. The bombs are going to do it, because he's going to drop his weapon part. So we don't want to actually have an explosion damage on him. And then he doesn't have any bullet damage, and he's not going to have any bullet speed. And his bonus item is actually going to be the weapon part that we want to show up. And I think with this, I just set it to red. So the weapon part is going to be the red weapon part. And bonus ball, he doesn't drop a bonus ball, so it doesn't really matter. Now his bonus destroy delay is going to be 5. Actually, no, it's going to be 0, because we don't want it to disappear off the screen. So we're going to set that to 0. And we don't want this thing to jump out of him, so we're actually going to set its velocity to 0. So it spawns and hits his middle, it's just going to drop to the ground. And so audio clips. So let's just lock this here. We're going to go over to the sounds. Alright, so for the damage clip, it's going to be number 9. So whenever he gets shot by MegaMan or hits anything from MegaMan that hurts him, he's going to play this damage sound. A block, well, he doesn't really have a block, but we're just going to drop in the dink. There's no shoot. And the enemy fill is the one that we ended up in a different video where we cropped it so we can just loop it over and over to make that da-da-da-da-da sound. So we're going to drop that in there. And then he's not going to have a shoot. Now we're going to define his hand separately, so we're not actually going to use this because it's not really a bullet shoot position. So we're going to leave this as none. And then the bullet prefab is also going to be none. His explode, now when this guy explodes, and that's why I ended up renaming this, is it's the prefab. So we're going to go into our prefabs and effects, and we're going to use explode effect 3 just like MegaMan has. So when this guy explodes, kaboom, he's going to use the big explosion. And what we're going to do is actually, this is the value that we ended up creating for how long this explode stays on screen, and we're going to go from the default to 2, we're going to use 5. So that's going to be that. And we have the events, but we haven't actually defined anything in the BombMan script yet, so we're just going to hold off on that for right now. And then the next thing we're going to do is we need several properties here, our silver children. First child is going to be called hitbox. Alright, so now hitbox. Let's unlock that. Now that's on a default layer, and it's going to be that. And on our hitbox, let me see here. No tags, no layers, scale 1:1. We're going to add in a box collider, right? So box collider 2D, and this is going to be the same as the other stuff. So we can actually copy this component for the box because it's going to be the same dimensions. However, this is the trigger, and this is what's going to register whether he's touching MegaMan to cause damage. So that's what this hitbox is going to be. And that's it for the hitbox. Then we need another child. And this one we're going to call hand position. So hand POS. And this is going to be also default. We're going to change the gizmo on it. We're going to give it this nice yellowy circle there so we can see it. Don't see it yet. But then we're going to change its position. So it's going to be negative 0.07. Okay, so there it is. Now you can see it down here, right? And the Y for it is going to be 0.225. So this is basically going to be the default spot for where the bomb is going to rest on his hand. Now obviously this is going to be moving around and stuff, and the bomb is going to adjust its position to stay with it. And more on that when we actually get to it. That's going to be the cool part of this whole thing, right? One of the cool things anyway. So that's the hand position. The next one is something we haven't done with any of our enemies. And so we're going to create this, and this is going to be something new, and this is also going to be on default. And this is going to be called, this game object is going to be called damage. And why? Well, I'm going to explain it one sec before I do that. I want to add in the stuff first. And we're going to add a component, and it's going to be a sprite renderer. And the sprite is going to be the hit bubble, which is this. So boom. So right now it's behind him, but what we're going to do is we're going to change this layer order to 10. So boom, there's this hit bubble. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change the alpha on it down to 0 so it's not shown right away. And that is the damage. So when we code it out, I'll explain it in a little bit more in depth of how this is actually all going to work, but I will go over it real brief for right now. None of the other enemies, when you shoot them, they flash damage. They'll take the hits and then they'll explode and disappear from the screen. Well, this guy's a little bit different, and the problem with this is that when he takes damage and he flashes, he has an underlying animation, you know, so you can't switch. Well, you could, I'm sure, but it's going to be really complicated to figure out the timeline in that. But you have an underlying animation that could be still playing out, but you also need to show this hit bubble as he's still doing that animation. So you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, how do you do something like that? Well, at first I was thinking, okay, we could probably mess around with keeping track of the time where the one animation is, you know, flip between them and stuff like that. And I thought, man, that is like the most that'd be like too complicated to even think about trying to code out, you know. So I was thinking, okay, how can I solve this problem? And so what I ended up coming up with was this: adding in another child that's on the same level as his main animation. And so what we're going to do is when he actually takes damage, we're going to toggle between his animation and his animation sprite and this sprite. So it's kind of like how MegaMan flashes on and off. Well, we're going to flash him between this off, bubble on, this off, back and forth. So that's what's going to basically keep his animation going while the bubble is flashing on top of it. And so it's an illusion and it works. So which is actually, it's really, you know, I didn't think it was going to be that simple, but it actually is. And so when you shoot him, he's going to flash between his animation, so that sprite renderer will be turned off and the bubble will be turned on. And then on the next iteration, the bubble will be turned off and his animation sprite will be turned on. So alpha on, alpha off, alternating between the two for X amount of times. So that's how we accomplish his flash. So maybe there's another way of doing it, but I don't know. But that's the way I ended up doing it, and I think it works really well. So now that we have our BombMan, at least the basics of our BombMan, we need his animations. So we're going to go over to animations, and then let's see here, BombMan, bosses in BombMan, and we're going to create all these things. So let us right-click inside of that folder, inside animations, enemies, bosses, and BombMan, and we're going to create a new animator controller called BombMan. Oops, and once again, I'm going to work on using this keyboard. Boom. Okay, so there's BombMan. Now before we move on to that, let's come over here. Let's just set this in here, just so we have it set so we don't forget about it. So we can save that. Now going back over to here. So how many animations does he have? He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He has 6 different animations. Technically 3 of them are the same jump. And I don't know if you watched the little developer video that I made for this guy. I couldn't get the animation to jump ahead and switch to the box collider dimension size and everything, so I ended up just breaking his 3 different jump types into 3 different animations. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world if I do it that way. So it actually probably makes it a little bit easier. So our first one's going to be called BombMan Idle. And then we're just going to create all these one by one. And what we're just going to do is we're just going to Control D. Let's just create them, and then we'll link them all into the animator. So then we're going to have jump 1, jump 2, jump 3. And then instead of jump 3, it's going to be pose. That's when he's tossing the bomb up and catching it, like he's taunting MegaMan almost. And then our last one, which we're going to call throw. So these are all his animations: his idle, jumps, his pose, and his throw. So let's go over to, let's do this so we can see this. So double click, can't really see from there. Let's put it up here. So then we're going to highlight the idle. The idle is going to be his default. So we're going to add that in there. So that's his default. And then we can add in the rest. So we're going to go one by one and add them all in. From selected clips. And that's the next one. And then the third jump type. So, his pose. There's the pose. And his throw. There, and then his throw. Okay, so these are those animations. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move this out of the way real quick. Some of these, they're all actually, except for the pose and the throw, they're all basically just single frame animations. So what we're going to do with the single frames is, even though they don't really loop, we're just going to turn on the loop, just so we don't have to reset them and stuff like that. So we're just going to put the idle and the 3 jumps all on loop. Now these two are going to have to reset when we want to switch between them, and when we get to the actually building out the BombMan controller, we'll get to that part. So with that, now we're going to change all the speeds on these things. So first we're going to start with his idle. So his idle, oops, it's going to be a single sample frame. So if we go over to graphics, we're going to drop in the idle. Boom. So there's the idle. That's his idle animation right there. And then we're going to set these properties now. Let's see here. So what we need are the box collider offset size, the hand position, and then the hitbox and all that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these just to get them to register. And then change them back. And that's the easiest way of doing it. Okay, so those are those. And then our hand position. And then I think that expands all 3 of them. Maybe, yep, X, Y, and Z. And then our hitbox, same thing. Just put a 1, change it back to a 0. Just so that we can register this stuff. 3 and 2. And 3 and 2. There. So then we can stop recording. So here, now we have all these things set up. Get this out of the way. Now, these are the defaults because these are the ones that we set up, and because it was the idle animation that we set up in there, so these are going to be the default values for all that. So this one, if I double check, 0.12, 0.22, 0.22, 0.72250. Yep, so this one's good. So the idle is done. So then we're going to move on to jump 1. And jump 1 is a single frame as well, and that's also at 1 sample. And we're going to drop in jump 1, sprite, and then we can preview it, and then apply that, and then you can follow along. So obviously the bomb position is going to have to get changed. And so we're going to record. We're going to put 0. It's actually, let me take that back. So that's going to be 0.053. And then this is going to be 14. And then the size is going to be 12 and 26. There. And then, let's see, the hand position is going to be, oops, I'm looking at the wrong one again. Hold on, sorry. Let's go back to the BombMan. Looking at the wrong data. So this is actually jump 1. So it's actually 005, and then it's going to be 145, and then it's going to be 16, and then it's going to be 27. Yeah, that looks better. Dude, there's his X right around that area. And then his hand position, in this case, is going to be negative 0.465, and the Y on it's going to be 2.75. So there, boom, there's his hand position now. And then we're going to go back over to BombMan again. Actually, I'm sorry, the hitbox this time. And then we're going to change the hitbox to negative 0.005. And then the Y is going to be 0.145. And then that's going to be 0.16. And then that's going to be 27.27. Boom. So there. So that's it for the first jump style. Next jump style, which is going to be jump 2, which is also a single frame animation, which we can change. Then there's going to be jump 2, boom, and then we'll put them in record, and we're going to set all these properties too. Alright, so on this one, which is the one I was looking at, that's going to be negative 0.053. And then the Y on that guy is going to be 0.14, I believe. The size is going to be 0.12. On the X and the Y is going to be 26. And then his hand position is actually going to be negative 1125. And on the Y, it's going to be 0.265. Boom. So now his hand position is up over here. And then back around the hitbox, we're going to change. So negative 0.053. And then 0.14. Oops. And then the size is going to be 0.12. And 0.26. Boom. So that's that one. And turn off the record, save that. So that's number 2. Jump number 3 now. And if we preview that, that's also going to be a single frame animation. The third jump, boom. Put it in record. Jump 3. The BombMan himself. So the offset, 0.0051, and then 0.135. The size, 0.16, and 0.25. His hand position now, in this case, is going to be negative 0.0355, and the Y is going to be 0.255. So boom, now it's right there. And then on the hitbox, same as before, so going to be 0.0051, and then 0.135, and on the size, it's going to be 0.16, and the Y is going to be 0.25. Boom. Turn off the record, save that. Okay, so those are the three jumps in the idle. Now the pose. The pose is a little bit different. Hold on one sec. Because the pose is actually an animation. Alright, so let's preview that. So now the sample rate on the pose is actually going to be set to 9 frames. And we're going to do, he's actually got 3 frames to this. So the first one is going to be the idle. And then it's going to be the pose on 01. And then it'll be the idle again on 03. So you're going to skip one there. So idle, pose, idle. So his hand, the bomb's going to be on his hand here. He's going to bring it down, and he's going to toss it up and catch it while his hand's still up in the air. So that's what we're going to achieve with this. So starting at the first frame, set that to record. So that's going to be idle, and then we need the box collider, not on this. We'll just start with the BombMan first. And then the first one, right? Just make sure. Yeah. Okay, so box collider. So that's going to be 0 and 0, 1, 2. So I just want to make sure that these all stay the same. Because this is idle, so we already know that these are the defaults. But I just want to set these in there anyway, even though they are the same. And then the hand position will be the same. So we'll just say 6 to 7, we'll just say 6 back to 5, and then the hitbox, and the same deal, just 1 back to 0, so 11 back to 12, 1 back to 2, or 2 back to, then change 1 back to 2. So there, that's the first frame. Second frame is basically like identical. The only difference is going to be where the hand position is. So we're just going to say back to BombMan. This is repetitive, but I just want to make sure that these are all set regardless of what frame it's on. So just to make sure that there's no problems or complications. Hand position is going to be slightly different, so it's still going to be negative 0.7, but the y is what's going to be different. And the y is actually going to be 0.165. There. So it comes down a little and it goes back up. And then on the hitbox, the same. We're just going to toggle these back to what they were, just so that they get recorded. There. So that's the second. Now the last one is going to be just like the first. So back to 0, back to 2, back to 2, back to 2, and then the hand. Back to 5. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It's actually 225. Back to the original. And then the hitbox. Three back to 2, 3 back to 2, 3 back to 2. Okay. So then we're going to stop recording there, and then if we check all these, the only difference should be this right here. Yep. And then back up. So boom, boom, boom. So now if we actually play this, you're going to notice something. You see how the hand position is kind of like interpolated between the two positions? That's going to cause a problem. So to fix that, what we're going to do is we're going to change the curve. So click into this area and somewhere, and you're going to just Control A everything. Then you're going to go over here to curves, and you can zoom in actually. Kind of come in here. See, this is where the curve is, so it comes down and then interpolates and comes back up. All right. So let's see. It's kind of weird. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that. So and come on. There we go. So what we're going to do is on the left tangent, we're going to change it to constant. It doesn't look right. I wonder if it's because of the zoom, actually. If I come over here, it's because of this. Just stretched out there. It's going to come down, boom, boom, and makes a U, right? So now, if we go back over here, so there's no interpolation. It's just boom, drop, back, up. Sudden movement. So if we click out, and if we preview it, now you see, now it doesn't try and guess, like do a lerp between the two. It's just, that's where it is, and that's where it's supposed to be, bang, 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 boom, boom. So that's what we want to do. So we change the left tangent to constant on this, and now it follows. So just wanted to make sure I didn't forget that part. So let's save everything we got here so far. And then we're going to move on to the last one, which is the throw. So let's preview that. And then we're going to drop in throw 1. But before we do that, the samples. Oh, whoops, I'm sorry. Go back over to pose. Duh, I forgot. Okay, on the third one here, we need to add an event. So add an event there. We don't have the function yet. We'll fill it in later, but we need an event on the last one. The event's basically going to say, hey, toss the bomb up and then catch it. So we need an event on this. So when it hits this animation frame, it calls this event. So you can say that. Now go back. I'm sorry. Yeah, go back over to throw. So on throw, we're going to change the sample rate to actually 2. Zoom this in here. So it's going to be 1 and 2. It's basically bomb in hand, bomb leaving hand. So we can drop in the second one. Pop. So now you're going to say, okay, well, this picture already has a bomb in it. Well, what we're going to do is when our bomb's in the screen, it's going to sit right on top of it. You're not going to notice the difference, whether there's a bomb behind it or not. So that's what's going to be cool, because as soon as it leaves, it switches to this where the bombs disappear, and the bomb's going to go, pew! It's going to launch his hand and leave. So some more illusion and trickery on our part. So back to preview. We're going to record. We're going to set all these values again. So let's go over to BombMan. Go to our box collider. And our box collider, our offset's going to be 0.039. On the Y, it's going to be 12 again, but we're going to change it so we can record it. The size is going to be 0.17. And on the X and on the Y, it's 0.22, but we're going to change it to a 3 back to a 2 so we have it. So here's the box right there. It's around him and it's kind of like right on his elbow. His hand position, which we're going to set, is going to be negative 0.0785, and it's going to end up being 0.22. So it doesn't look right. Hold on a sec. 0.0785. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 0.17. Where did I get that from? Yeah, so there. Because the pivot of the bomb is basically down here, that's where our hand position is going to be. Because that's where the bomb's going to rest, is right there. And then our hitbox, which should be 0.039. And then we already know that's going to be 12 back to the same thing. And then this was 17. And change it so we can record it. So that's the first frame. Second frame where he throws the bomb. I'm going to go back over to BombMan and we're going to change these colliders. So this is going to be the same. So we're just going to 8 back to 9. Oops. Yeah, 8 to 9. Just so we can record these. 11, 12. And then 17. So we'll just 16 back to 17. And 23 back to 22. Hand position on this one is going to be the negative, but it's going to be 0.22. I wonder if I messed up on that because it doesn't look right. I mean, the bomb should be in the same place. I might have wrote the run. I think it's still supposed to be 17. I'm going to have to check I'll check it and I'll come back to this. We're going to leave it at 17 right because the bomb his hand was here holding it. The bomb's going to be going from the same spot, not like up above from where it was. So we're going to leave that. I'll check it and I'll come back to this. Hitbox, same. 8 back to 9. Back to 12. 6 to 7. 2. That doesn't look right either. 17, 22. I wonder if I wrote this stuff down wrong. Yeah, let me double check. I'll be right back. Hold on. I guess I left it the same. I guess it doesn't matter because he's going to be throwing the bomb anyway. So, where was I? Okay, so back here, back there. 1, 2. But this is supposed to be. It's not 1, 1, 2. It's 1, 2. And then the hand position, 0.17. And then the hitbox. And then on the second one, it's the same exact stuff. Yep, alright. Stop recording. And on this one, we're going to have an event as well, so that he throws the bomb, launch. And we're going to call the launch function from there. So he launches the bomb. So those are the animations for this guy. So next step is going to be actually to code him out. So if I go look over to this right now, I don't think there's anything more we have to do with this, but we have to basically create the bomb script, or the BombMan controller. And so I'm going to copy all the code into it, and then we're just going to go, instead of typing it all out, we're just going to go line by line. So I find it's probably going to be a lot easier, because this is already turning into an hour and 40 something minutes. So hold on, let me get the code, I'll be right back. Okay, let's go over to BombMan controller. So right now we don't have anything. First thing we're going to do is we need events. So we're just going to, this is the only thing I'm really going to type out here. So Unity engine dot events. So there's the events, because we need to be able to handle the events for when he's throwing the bomb and catching and things like that. So let's go over here. So I'm gonna take the whole top block of this first, and we'll go through this section. So inside of here, right before start, I'm going to paste all this in here, and this is going to be the beginning. So then we're going to take a look at each of these. Okay, so BombMan has these are all inherited from the enemy controller class, and then we have a reference to our enemy controller. So this is just like any other enemy that we've created. So we have an animator, the box collider, a rigid body, sprite renderer, and a reference to our enemy controller class. Now BombMan has four, I guess you could say, I don't know, I can't think of a word for these variables, but first one, they're all bools obviously, but just like how to define, what they are. But he's facing right, so we need to flag whether he's facing right or facing left, and flip his sprite or flip his transformer appropriately, just like Big Eye and some of the others. Is grounded, just like our player and others, when they're touching the ground, we need to see if they collided, and we have this as a flag, whether we're grounded or we're not grounded. We're either jumping or we're not jumping. And then we have this is jumping, so we're jumping or we're not jumping. So it's kind of like is grounded, but we use this for something a little bit extra in our fixed update. And then we have is taking damage, so if he's taking damage or not. So this is where the event's going to come in from the enemy controller, if he's taking damage or not, and then we can flash our sprite with the hit bubble, or flash our character with the hit bubble, and we only want to do it when we're not already taking damage. We don't want to call, because we're going to end up using a coroutine, and we don't want to keep calling that coroutine over and over and over. We only want to do it once, and while it's in that cycle, even if he's taking damage, we only want it to finish out, and if he gets out of that and he gets more damage, then it'll keep on continuing, and it'll just do another cycle. So that's what these flags are for. Next, we have the controlling of BombMan, and so his logic in a sense. So we want to know whether he's allowed to jump or not jump. We want to know whether he can throw a bomb or not throw a bomb. And then we want to know how many bombs he can throw, because like I was saying before, we're going to use a probability of 70% where he's going to basically have 3 bombs, a probability of 20% where he's only going to have 2 bombs, or a probability of 10% where he's only going to be having 1 bomb. So this is going to store however many bombs he's going to throw for that sequence. Then we have the directions and multipliers. So jump direction, this is going to basically be the -1 or 1. This is going to basically get multiplied against whether he's going to jump left or jump right. And then we're going to have last jump direction and last jump direction count. Now, in Big Eye, we used patterns. We had an array of patterns, and then we kept track of which pattern that we were in, and when we were finished that pattern, we pick a new pattern. We're going to take a different approach with this guy. We're not going to use patterns. What we're going to do is we're going to randomly pick between jumping left or jumping right. And whatever that is, we're going to remember that in this last direction. It's basically, this is like an index in the array. So we're going to remember the index of what the last one was. And so we're only going to let it do it 2 times at the most. So if he jumps left, that's once. If he jumps left again, that's twice. So the third jump is going to have to be going the opposite direction because we don't want to get stuck going one direction way too many times. So at the most, he's going to jump in one direction twice, and then after that, it'll be in the opposite direction. So that's what these flags are for, and we'll get to that when we get to the jumping stuff. And then we have a string here for our jump animation. Now remember, he's got 3 jump styles: jump 1, jump 2, and jump 3. And if we actually look at his feet, so like jump 1, preview it. So this is kind of like when he goes up. This is kind of like a short distance jump, where he's going to go up or back, and this is his jump style for that. Then he's got jump 2, which is more of a forward jump. So he's going to forward jump. So he's going to go forward jump, go in that direction. Or he's got a backward jump, which is more like a hardcore. Like, boom, he's going to jump backwards. So we're going to determine which jump style he's going to end up using. And that's actually going to be, that animation is going to be stored in the string here so that we can basically use it throughout while he's jumping. So player distance, it's a float. The distance is basically between BombMan and the player. How close is the player to BombMan? And that's going to determine whether if he's too close, he jumps away. If he's not too close, he starts throwing bombs, and that's part of his logic. Then we're going to have handles to the bomb and the player objects. So we're going to, when we generate a bomb, it's going to be stored in this variable, and we're going to get a reference to our player so we can check the position of where the player is on the screen. Now this is something new that I'm introducing here. This is a flag called Enable AI, and this is basically a flag where we don't want the enemy, when he starts up and the scene starts up, that he just starts going after MegaMan right away. We want to control when we want him to start using his AI, and that's basically what this flag does. And more on this a little bit later. And then we have these positions and the sprite thing. So we have a transform where we keep track of where the hand is, so the bomb's always going to be with the hand unless it gets launched. And then the bomb prefab, which is what we created earlier in the video. So the bomb and the damage sprite, which is the third child object called damage. So that's going to be the sprite reference. And then this is nothing new, direction. So he's going to start facing right, or he's going to start facing left, and that's all this is. So then we're going to need some more stuff. So I'm going to go over here, and we want awake. And I'm going to replace the start, and we're going to do the fixed update. So we'll do bit by bit. And actually, you know what? Attack with that. Let's just get all of it. Move the page down. We're going to go through all of this. It's a lot. It's a lot of code. So let's see here. Let's come back over here. We're going to replace these. Yep. Oops. The update. Boom. Paste that there. Save that, and then we're going to go back up to the top and we're going to explain all this. Okay, awake function. Nothing new here. We get a reference to our enemy controller that's on the on BombMan, and then we just get the animator, the box collider, rigid body, and sprite renderer so that we can make use of them easier by using these variables. Then in our start, so like I was saying earlier, so he starts right or he starts left. Now his sprite by default faces left. So because his face is left, so we're going to say is facing right is equal to false, and then if the move direction is right, then we want to say is facing right, and we want to flip the transform on the game object. So then he'll be facing the right direction in accordance with our is facing right variable here. And then there's a function that's at the bottom that's called new bomb, which we'll get to. So when he starts up, he's going to have a bomb generated and sitting on his hand. Excuse me. Then we're going to start out with, yes, when he starts out, he can jump and he can start throwing, and then we're going to choose however many bombs, and we'll get to what this function does when we get down there. So choose bomb count, and this is going to have the probabilities in there of how many bombs he's going to get right off the bat, and when as throughout he's playing. And then in the start, we're going to say, where's the player? Oh, now we got the player, and we're going to store the player so we can keep checking the position of the player throughout the updates. So now we're going to come down here to the fixed update. So if you need to, you can type this out, and then you can pause here and type this out. Fixed update. So this is just like we've been using in our player controller and in Big Eye with just a couple extra things in here. So this is all the same. This is all the same stuff. So you can type this out, and then we're going to come down here, and then these are the debug lines for when he's on the screen, so you can see where the box is on the bottom, so we can see where he's colliding to see if he's touching the ground or not. So down here, after he checks to see if the box is touching the ground layer, it'll not be null. Ground will be set to true, and then we're going to check and see if he's in the air right now, if he's jumping. When he's done jumping, we're going to say we can jump again, we can throw, and we're going to say his jumping is false at that point. We're going to, when he lands, we're going to choose a new bomb count, because if MegaMan is too close, he'll actually exit out of throwing bombs and jump away, so we'll get a new bomb count. And then we're going to play our idle animation when we land, and then we're going to set our velocity on our rigid body to 0, so he doesn't skid. Because there is a point, because some of his he does 3 jumping speed or 3 velocities on his jump, and the second and the third ones kind of give him a little bit of force. So when he hits the ground, he will slide. So what we're going to do here is we're going to prevent him from sliding by setting his velocity to 0 as soon as he lands, so he doesn't skid. So that's the point of that. So this is the only stuff that's really been different with than our player controller and Big Eye. There's a few of these things. So you can type that out, and if you need to get to this here, here, let me do this actually. In case this is new to you and you haven't actually done this yet with the other ones. I'm just going to put that there, and put that there. So we'll just save that. So now you can pause here, type all this out if you need to, or go to GitHub, copy and paste the code from the project online. Next is the update. So fixed update. This was fixed update, so this is running for physics and everything. Now this is regular update where it's running constantly. It doesn't care about waiting for physics every other frame or anything like that. So this is nothing new. So we check and see first if if it's frozen. So like when our scene starts, we freeze them on the screen. So we just keep returning out of this and then until we unfreeze them. This is usually done by the game manager. And then what we're going to do then is we're going to check and see if the facing. We're going to see which side the player is facing of BombMan. So if the player X is less than BombMan's, then the player must be the left side of BombMan. So then we'll check and see. Then in that case, if he's facing right, then we need to flip it, and then otherwise flip it again if it's the opposite direction. So basically this fixes which way he's facing depending on where the player is. So if he's facing right and the player's behind him, boop, he'll flip around and look left. Or if it's the opposite, then boop, he'll flip around and look right. And so here we get the player distance. So we check in every update, where is the player in the scene in relation to where BombMan is. So we use the vector2.distance, we send the position of the player and the transforms position of BombMan, and then we get to see what kind of a distance there is between them. And then this is where enable AI comes into play. So if enable AI is true, then we do all of our AI here. Otherwise, we skip it and we don't do any AI. He's just going to stand there on the screen with a bomb in his hand and do nothing. So if it is enabled, then we're going to see, is he grounded? If he's grounded, then we want to do whatever's in here. But if he's not grounded, then obviously he must be up in the air. So we're going to say is jumping is true. And we're going to play whatever the current jump animation is, because he has 3 different jump styles, and whatever this string is set to, that's the one that's going to play while he's up in the air. So then if he is grounded and the player, now we have 2 cases here. If he's grounded and the player distance is greater than 0.05, now I just hard-coded these. You can expose these in the inspector if you want, but I just said if it's like half a unit, then that's where I want to start chucking bombs. If it's less than that, then obviously he's too close and I want to jump away. So if the player distance is greater than 0.05, half a unit, then what we do is we check and see, is the bomb count greater than 0? If the bomb count is greater than 0 and he's allowed to throw, we throw a bomb. And we'll get to these functions after that. Else, if we're out of bombs to throw, we jump away. Because we know when we jump, and then he lands, he basically gets a new set of bombs to throw. However many that this function decides to determine for us. So then he'll jump away and land, and then if he's, once again, if he's far away, then we'll start throwing bombs. But if he's too close, which is this case, he'll jump again. So when the player is too close, he'll jump. When he's out of bombs, he'll jump. But if the player's far away and he's got bombs, he'll throw. So that's basically BombMan's logic in a nutshell. So we're going to go past all this. And then what we do here is this is going to be removed, but I just threw this in here. So if you press the R key on the keyboard, he'll run the pose function. And the pose function is basically he's going to have that bomb in his hand, he's going to toss it up, and he's going to catch it, which is kind of cool. So we're going to look at throw, and we're going to look at jump. And so let's go down to throw, and well, we'll do it in sequence for right now. Launch. So launch, now actually what we can do is we can go back over to our animations, and our throw, which is here, we want to be able to launch our bomb. Boom, so he's going to launch the bomb. And then on our pose, which is here, we want to toss the bomb. So save that, so now we can try that out after, but before we do that, we're going to look at throw and jump. So which one do you want to do first? Let's do a pose, because those aren't part of his logic, that's just outside of us. Let's go to pose. So pose, what we do is we play the animation called pose, and we set the speed to 1, so that he plays that. And when it gets to the animation event, he tosses the bomb. So to toss the bomb, we basically set the trigger to false, set the kinematic to false, so now the bomb has substance. We give it a velocity. All we do is nothing on the X, and we give it a 3 for the Y. So we give it a velocity. So that's going to leave his hand. It's going to go up. And we detach the bomb from... we detach the bomb so it's outside, because by default when we create the bomb, maybe we should go to look at new bomb. Actually, let's come down here. So this is why this should probably be better if we just type it out in some cases. New bomb. So this is when we start out, we got a new bomb. So we instantiate the prefab, and what we do here is we use the name and the game object name. So this is the new name. The reason we do this is we need to know BombMan has a bomb and MegaMan can be bombs, and they could both be throwing bombs at the same time, but we don't know whose bomb is which, right? So the only way we're really going to know is either we tag them differently or we name them differently. And I find that it's easier just to name them differently for right now. So the bomb prefab.name, we know that we named our bomb as bomb, and then we're going to put a parenthesis, and then we're going to say the game object name, which is in this case BombMan, because that's what the name of our game object is, BombMan. So we're going to put BombMan. So that's why when MegaMan creates a bomb, and they'll say bomb parenthesis player parenthesis. So then we'll know whose bomb is whose, which bomb belongs to which guy. So that's the name. The transform parent, which is the hand position. So basically the bomb is going to be a child of the hand position. So you can think of them as being attached. And the position is going to be wherever the hand position is. So the bomb is going to rest where the hand is. And so you know that the pivot of the bomb is at the bottom. It's going to be attached to wherever the hand is. So the bomb is going to follow the hand. So this is what the attachment of it is. So you're going to do the transform to the parent. Now in here, we set the damage value. So if MegaMan happens to touch the bomb, it's 4. And technically I shouldn't put 4. That should have actually been contact damage. Well, fix that in the next video. But this should be contact damage. So actually I can fix that. I haven't even uploaded the code yet. So it'll be fixed. So that should be enemy control or contact damage. Well, actually, I take that back. That's the bomb. That's not his contact damage. So this is actually right. So whenever the MegaMan touches the bomb, he loses 4. So if he touches BombMan, he loses 4. If he touches the bomb before it explodes, he loses 4. And if he gets touched by the explosion, he loses 4. So this is actually right. I'm wrong. So we set it to 4, and we set it to touch when the player touches, boom, that's where the collision will happen. Now, this is where the explosion event comes in. So we have this bomb, get component, bomb script explosion of dot explosion event. So this is the Unity event called explosion event that we do, and we add on a listener, and we add on this function called prepare throw, which is actually right up here, which we'll get to in a sec. So prepare throw, and then if the bomb, depending on which side BombMan's facing, we may have to flip the bomb. You know, if you happen to flip BombMan when he's already got bomb in his hand, the bomb will flip with him. But if you flip him if he's already flipped the not default way, and the bomb gets attached, the bomb will be backwards. So you have to check it. So you're gonna have to flip the bomb manually in that case. So that's what this is all about right here. So prepare throw. So prepare throw. What we do is we know that animations get stuck if they don't have a loop. So what this will do is, if we've already thrown a bomb, we have to reset the bomb throwing animation. So that's what this does. So we reset the animation, so it'll start back at the beginning if we call it again. And we set the speed to 0, so it doesn't actually do anything other than just reset it. And then we call new bomb. And so, and then new bomb, which is down here, and you're just creating a new bomb for the scene if there's a bomb, no bomb. And then can throw is true, can jump is true. So then we throw the bomb. And to throw the bomb, we call the throw animation. And this one actually we set the speed to 1, and it plays through. So it's hand, bomb, throw, and that's it. That's when it plays out. So it's 2-frame animation. So now when he throws the bomb, he can't throw it anymore, and he can't jump when it's being thrown. And then we decrease our bomb count by 1. So as soon as it gets thrown, boom, -1. So that's the bomb, the prepare throw, and the throw. So then the pose. So when we pose, we press the R key. So he's going to do the pose, and at the end of the pose, the third end, we call the toss bomb function, and we set the speed to 1. So he's going to boom. He's going to do the pose. So toss bomb gets called. And so what toss bomb is? Well, anytime we created the bomb, remember it starts out as a trigger and it starts out as kinematic. Well, we're going to give it volume again. So as soon as we toss it, or it's attached to his hand, when it's attached to his hand, it's a trigger and it's kinematic. We don't want it to be that. We want it to have substance and observe gravity in physics. So we set the trigger to false, set the kinematic to false, and then on the rigid body, we give it this velocity. So all we do is say, just move up on the Y. So it goes up, and then gravity is going to push it back down. And then the bomb will be detached, so it's not going to be a child of the hand position. It'll break itself out. And then we start this coroutine called catch bomb. So when the bomb goes up, you got to catch it, right? So now we're going to try catching it here. So you're like, okay, well, how do you catch the bomb? Well, I'm glad you asked. So you could try doing something like a collider, and then the bomb lands on the collider, but it's like, wow, it's overthinking it, honestly. So what I ended up doing was, we have this flag here called caught bomb. So we haven't caught the bomb yet. So the bomb is still up in the air, and what we do here is we wait for 0.10 seconds, just enough for it to leave his hand, right? So then while the bomb is in the air, we're stuck in this loop. Caught bomb, caught bomb. Have we caught it yet? Have we caught it yet? Have we caught it? No, we haven't caught it yet. And while we're in there, what we're going to do is we're going to check and see if the bomb's the Y position has equaled or has gone a little bit, or has gone less than the hand position, because it's going to go up and it's going to come back down to where the hand position is. So if it ends up going up and coming down and hitting where the hand position is, then we're going to say we caught it. And then we're going to reset the animation sequence, because, it's a play out animation. So we reset the sequence. We change the bomb back to a trigger and kinematic, so it's not going to observe gravity anymore now that it's in his hand. And we reestablish the bomb's parent, which is the hand, and the position, which is where the hand is. So we basically kind of, even though we caught it at the same location, you might be slightly very off by very little. We just move it back, and you're probably not even going to notice it. And to make sure that our frame doesn't get locked up, we basically wait for end of frame. So this is going to get called every frame. Wait for end of frame. Have we caught the bomb yet? Have we caught the bomb yet? Nope. Okay, we finally caught the bomb. Boom, we're out. Coroutine done. So that's basically the toss, and the catch. So that's how you toss and catch a bomb. So it's pretty cool, right? So that's the pose, the toss and the catch. Then we have the launch, which we'll get to in a minute. So let's do we already did the throw, but we did the throw with the launch. So when we throw the bomb, we launch it, right? So it's the last frame of the throw. So when we throw it, it actually throws the bomb, and then we decrease the count. So let's get to the actual launching part now, which is right here. So we're going to set this up. By default, I hard code the offset, which I think this was a bad idea, because I think we set it up. Where's the offset? Oh wait, never mind. Offset I set as part of the bomb script. So yeah, I hard code it as 0.15 for the offset for right before he lands in front of MegaMan. So you could actually change this to expose it in the inspector if you want, but right now I just hard code it because this is BombMan and he's got a certain way that he acts, and we don't, stray beyond that. We're trying to replicate the game as close as possible. So all we end up doing is I just hard-coded the 0.15 in this local variable called offset. Now you can, like I said, you can create another variable at the top, serialize it or whatever, and then you can expose the offset and you can change it and even create a public or whatever you want to do with it. But here we just keep it local. And so what we do is if the player transforms X position is greater than 0, which basically means he's right, we're going to subtract. So the offset will be negative. So let's think about that. So if the player's X is here and his position is positive, so positive of 0, then we want to subtract. Boom. Otherwise, we want to go forward, which would be behind it. So this is basically make it so that it goes in front of him, lands in front of him versus landing behind him. And then the vector 3, so the player 3 position, which is going to be our target destination. So we create a new vector for where we want the bomb to end up being launched to, which is going to be this player position vector here. And then we set up the bomb script. So we know the damage is equal to 4. When it explodes, it's equal to 4. BombMan's explosion is nothing. So as soon as it hits the ground, it goes kaboom. We want it to collide with the player. The source position is the hand position. The target is going to be where the player is, and then the offset. Oh, I'm sorry. So this is going to be, the offset's going to be either negative or positive. The calculation is actually done in the bomb script, so I'm losing my mind. But even though it's like plus offset and everything like that. But the offset is taken into account in the bomb script. But then we set the offset in there. The height, which by default is 1, but we're just going to pass it a 1. We don't want it to bounce, so it's not going to apply the bouncy material. And then we call the launch of the bomb script, which is here. So remember, if we have a target position, then it's going to do the whole using the calculate launch data thing. And then we detach the bomb from the hand so that it's outside. And so that's what this part does here. So we set it to null. Now this block here has to do with it's for MegaMan, which we will use in the when we get to the boss fight and the hyper bomb and all that, and where MegaMan can throw the bomb. But this is just a code in case you want to see how you can do it without it being BombMan style. So no contact damage, because if you notice when the bomb is bouncing around, and then if the enemy actually touches it, nothing happens to them. And so there's no contact damage. And then the explosion, we'll just say is 4. And then we'll give it 3 seconds to explode against the touching that, and then the direction, which we'll figure out later. And then the velocity, and then we're going to apply the bounce to it in the same launch function. So that's basically our launch code for throwing the bomb. And then we have what is the jump, when he's jumping. So let's get to where he's jumping. We'll get to the choose bomb. Actually, yeah, well, let's do the choose bomb and then we'll go down to jumping. So choose bomb, like I said, it's going to be a 70% chance of 3 bombs, 20% for catches or doing 2 bombs, and 10% for 1 bomb. This is based off of the Unity article. I used this somewhere else. I think it was in choosing the bonus items randomly. Well, we do it again. I do it again here for choosing how many bombs. So, and these are basically array indexes 0, 1, and 2. And so what I end up doing is this whatever the return value plus 1. So 1, 2, 3. So 1 is 10%, 2 is 20%, 3 bombs is 70%. And so we pick a probability and we return the index down here plus 1 or the link, which actually ends up being 3. So that's how many bombs end up getting returned. So that's all that this is. So choose bomb count. And here's the code for that, which is pretty much just a copy of this with a little bit of a change there and some function and some variable name changes. And so you can take a look at that, right? Type that out. Okay, the jump. So when he jumps, so first we only want to jump if he's allowed to jump. So if he can jump, and then we execute all this code. So that's very important right here. So we check and see if he can jump. And if he can jump, it's determined when there's no throwing, and if he's done landing from a jump. So then he can jump again. So we have 3 jump velocities that I end up using here. This is considered the short jump, a medium-sized jump, and a long jump. So x of 1, x of 2, or x of 3, and then higher, higher, higher to make up for the distance. So we just randomly pick, we have 3 that we'll randomly pick from. So we're going to randomly pick a jump index, so of the 0, 1, or 2, and then we get the velocity of the random pick. And then here, we're going to pick which direction, but we're going to make sure that we do not do it more than twice. So we don't get stuck jumping backward over and over and over, or jumping forward over and over and over. We only do it 2 times at the most, and then we'll pick the opposite and then start over. So that's basically what this whole thing does here. So while we're true, we'll just say while it's true, x directions, it's going to be -1 to go this way, to go left, +1 to go right. We get the index of the length, so jump direction index is going to be 0 or 1. And then we get the jump direction, which is going to be of here, 0, 1. So this is going to be -1 or it's going to be 1. This is going to be 0 or 1. And then we check and see if the index is the same as the last index. And if they're not the same, then we update it, we reset the counter, and we break the while loop. Otherwise, it's the same as before, we increment it, and if it's less than 2, then we break. However, if this fails, then we stay in here until one of these is going to be true. So if this turns into, this will be different. So this will break out of it because it's going to keep picking and picking and picking until it's not the same anymore, once it goes past 2. So it will break out. And then down here, we're going to check which jump animation we're going to use, so which string. So by default, we're going to go between either 2 or 3 at the start. So what we're going to do is we're going to check and see if the player's transform x is less than BombMan's x, which basically means that the player is on the left of BombMan. And then we're going to see if the jump direction is equal to -1, which means it's left. So it means he's basically jumping forward. So we'll use a jump forward. Otherwise, if this is not true, then he's jumping away, which is 3. And if he's flipped, it's the same principle anyway, it doesn't matter. So he's going to jump forward or he's going to jump backward. And that's what we're going to see here. Then what we're going to do is if we use jump index of 0, which is our short jump here, then we're going to just use jump 1 because it's a short jump. So these are for the medium and the long jumps. Depending on which direction he's going. We're just going to pick between those, which way he's going. But if it's a short jump, it's going to be the same whether he's going backward or forward, and we're going to use jump 1. So if the index is equal to 0, then we're going to use jump 1. And so what we do is jump direction -1 or 1, times it by the x velocity, and then we're going to update his velocity, so pooh, he jumps away. And he's going to jump left or he's going to jump right. And then we say can jump is equal to false. So this only happens one time until he lands, and then he can jump again. So we don't want to try to jump while he's already still in the air. Okay, so then down here we have a public function, enable AI, so we can call this from maybe the scene or the game manager to say which we're going to use in the boss fight, because we're going to animate him throwing up the ball or the bomb, catching the bomb, his power indicator is going to increment, and then the fight's going to start. So that's what we need this for, to say, okay, start the AI, and then he's going to start chucking bombs and jumping around. Now, this is the take damage event. We make this public. This is going to be what's tied to the take damage event in the enemy controller. So what we're going to do is, if he's not taking damage, he's going to start taking damage, and then we're going to flash after damage, and we're going to use the coroutine. So this is basically the event, this is the function that we tie to our take damage event from the enemy controller. Okay. Now down here, flash damage. So this is where I was talking about. It's going to alternate between playing the hurt bubble or his current animation. So we just swap between them. So at start, we're going to say sprite, which is actually his enemy controller sprite, not the damage sprite. So this is, we're going to set to clear, and we're going to set the damage sprite to white, which basically means it's not going to be alpha anymore. It's going to be opaque. And then we're going to wait for 0.05. And then we're going to flip. So then we're going to say the sprite is solid, and the damage is going to be hidden, and we'll wait. So we're going to do this 8 times. So it's going to flash between, it's going to go between the two. And then when it's done, we're going to say his taken damage is false. So we only want to do this one time. And if he keeps getting hit, we don't want it to just keep calling the coroutine over and over and over, right? So that's when this coroutine is done, then we set it's back to false, and if it's not, then boom, we can do it again. And then defeat, I just threw this in here for the heck of it, where we can try to find the bomb, and if the bomb isn't null, we destroy the bomb, remove it from the scene as soon as the guy, when BombMan gets defeated. And we can really do anything we want with this. This is just an example. So this is the defeat. And then on trigger, I put this in here just in case you did want to use it. So when BombMan actually touches the player, in this case, you can do something if he's jumping or if he's on the ground. And I just leave this empty for you to do if you want to use it for anything. So you can put debug in here so you know if he lands on the player or or touches the player when he's on the ground. So this is just kind of like there for usage if you want to use it, and we don't actually use it here. So I'm going to go back up to the top, and I don't think I missed anything. So we got all this, the pose, the launch, the update, the fixed update, the start, and all these variables. So we have all the variables, the awake function, the start, when we start we get out a new bomb, we attach our throw bomb method, how many bombs we can jump and throw when it starts. And then our fixed update. And then our debug lines. And then in our update, this is the flip, distance, if there's AI, if he's grounded, otherwise he's not grounded, jump, jump, throw, is jumping, jump animation while he's in the air. Press R on the key if you wanted to just do the pose for the heck of it. Launch the bomb. Detach it from the parent. Do the pose. And then the pose calls toss up at the end of through the animation event. So we toss up the bomb. Call the coroutine to catch it. See if it's landed at the position we want it, and then we consider it caught and stop it from moving. So we prepare to throw, we throw, prepare to throw, new bomb, choose bomb with probability, and then our jump. Enable AI, taking damage, flashing when we take damage, the defeat, and if we collide with the player, or anything else if we wanted to check for. We can check for tags or names and things like that. So that is our BombMan controller script. So now, if I come back over here, now I got all this stuff in here that I got to fill out. And this is really getting, this is going to be the longest video yet. So we have our hand position, drop, our bomb prefab, which is in weapons here, bomb prefab, our damage sprite, which is here attached to BombMan, top. And yes, he's going to go basically be facing left because MegaMan's always going right, so he'll be facing left to start out. Now our events, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a damage event, and we're going to put in our BombMan object off of BombMan controller, and then it's taking damage, which is this function here, our take damage function, and in our defeat, add on BombMan object and BombMan controller, and then our defeat function. So those are our events that get called. So assuming this is all filled out and everything is good, I'm going to save. And then assuming that our events, so this is our pose where we toss the bomb, and if I go to our throw uses launch, and save it. Alright, well, then what we're going to do is BombMan is now done, I think. So we're going to go to enemies, we're going to make him a prefab. Let's drop him in there. And now he's a prefab, we're just going to drag him up here underneath the Dr. Light. Now, position, we're going to move him. So, we move over here to this. We're going to move him. Right now he's over there at 0, 0. We're going to put him in our scene up here so he can face off against MegaMan right away. And so his position is going to be negative 12.20238, and his Y is going to be 4.40799. Now I get these numbers based off of if I have them up here and I start it, physics is going to push him down, and whenever he lands you can basically pause it and then you can get those values, and that's where he's going to drop. So that's where you can have him start out. So these are basically when he's done landing on top of ground. So that's how I get these numbers. So let's save that. The other thing we want to do is we're going to block them in for right now. We're going to put a boundary over here. We already have a boundary here, and so we want to stop them from basically exiting. We want them to just have their little fight in this area for now. We're going to build it out in the boss fight area down at the bottom of the scene. MegaMan get through here, and he's going to get down to the bottom and start have his fight, his actual fight with BombMan. But for that, before we do that, we're just going to do the boundaries. So go to boundaries, look for this wall left here, and duplicate it. So highlight it and do Control D. And I'm just going to rename it to wall left temp because we're going to nuke it later. And I'm just going to move it up here. And for its position and all that, we're going to do negative 8.72. And then the dimensions, 2.879.206, okay. So there, that's the left wall. And then we have, well, we'll call it the right wall. So now they're going to be locked in this little fighting area right here. So I'm going to bring this up a little, drag this out some. Let's drop that. There. Let's just do it like that. Now, assuming this works, we're going to find out. Okay. So there's the bomb. Alright. So let's, for the heck of it, if we move BombMan around, I mean, the bomb should leave his hand. Alright. Oops. What did I do? Save those changes, whatever happened. Start it again. Change boundaries. Okay, BombMan. So, let's move this guy around. Ooh, look, the bomb's following. Where he is. Drop him. There. physics is dragging him back down to Earth. Boop. Okay. Let's try the R for the pose. Boop. There, see? So at the end of this animation, it calls the toss up. So that's going to basically toss the bomb up. We change it from kinematic and a trigger to give it volume. So it's going to apply, physics is going to control it. So we launch it up 3 units, and then we call our coroutine to catch it. So once that bomb comes back down and gets over here to wherever that hand position is, it puts it back to the trigger and kinematic and locks it back onto his hand. So that's our simulated toss and catch. Like that. So he pumps that bomb up. Boom. So that's our first trick. Second trick, shooting. So we splash. So we flash going between the bubble and his sprite, which is part of his animation. So we just alphatize that. Is that even a word, alphatize? We make it alpha. So the bubble will be solid and the animation will be transparent, and then vice versa. So we do that 8 times at 0.05 each. And if I keep shooting him, it's just going to wait until the coroutine ends before it does it again, because of that flag is taking damage, because we don't want the coroutine to be called over and over and over. So that's done. So then we're going to check and see if his logic works. So let's go to BombMan. I'm going to set myself to I for invincible for now, so I don't get killed right away. And start him. Boom. So he's going to start throwing bombs. So he must have picked 3. He's going to jump. Throw some more. He must have picked 3 again. Nope, he's going to bump. He's going to jump. He's going to throw some more. He jumped. I was too close to him, so he decided to jump away again. So like if he lands on me, he'll jump away as well. That's his big long jump. And you see how the bomb always lands in front using that function that we got from the YouTube video. So it calculates the velocity required to make it to the end target with a certain height, taking gravity into account. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to shoot him. I'm going to kill this guy, boom. And that wasn't supposed to happen. No reference, so that's obviously a bug. Explosion damage. So, what happened there? Must have forgot something. Okay, so... explosion script. Probably forgot something in the bomb. Let me see here. Maybe. Let me see the bomb. Hold on, let me figure this out right back. Okay, I think I know what the problem is. I haven't checked it yet, but what it is since we now have the prefab for the third explosion, it's missing the explosion script. So where's the prefab effects? Because we have explosion script on 2, but it's missing from number 3. So I believe that's what the problem. So I'm going to go over here to scripts and explosion script and add that on there. So that should take care of that problem. So I'm going to bring this back over, run it one more time. I'm just going to kill him real quick and just see what happens. And the error shouldn't happen. So I'm going to go I. No, actually I don't need it. Is this guy gonna die or what? There he is. Boom. So the error didn't happen. It was just because the explode effect 3, and then it disappeared after 5 seconds. And there's our weapon part. So we can go collect our weapon part, boom, and that's where you can say, oh, okay, tally up the score, etc., and we got our 50,000. And obviously this gets added right away, which we don't want if we're going to follow the original game. So I'm going to come up with a solution for that before the boss fight video. More than likely, I won't set it on the enemy controller. We'll set a score value on the actual the enemy's like BombMan controller and put the value there, and then it can be tallied up by the game manager after the fact. I haven't gotten that far yet, so let's stop, do it again, and we're going to do the BombMan. Let's enable the AI. Boom. I'm going to die from this guy. I'm just going to die. I'll let it start over. Actually, I want to... Boom. And then I died. And that's that. And that brings us to the end, I believe. We now have BombMan. I think I might just do that from now on. I'm going to save myself the time of typing everything out because this is already a 2.5 hour video. And by the time I'm done rambling right now, it'll probably be 2 hours and 35 minutes. So I'm going to save myself on the rambling. Because these things are really long and I think people are losing the attention to them is going to get shorter and shorter. So that's how I created BombMan. So he's very similar, I believe, to the original NES. He jumps around, he throws his bombs, he calculates how many bombs he's going to have. He gets the toss, which we'll get into the boss fight. So we're going to make use of our cinematic cutscene timeline type deal where MegaMan is going to be there. This guy's going to show up. He's going to toss his bomb up. His energy bar is going to animate up, and then the fight's going to start. And we're going to do the enable AI to get it going. And then once this guy gets defeated, he'll drop the weapon part, and MegaMan will capture the weapon part. The scene will stop. We're going to tally up the score, and we're going to add in the hyper bomb to MegaMan so he can switch and use that. So that's going to be the next video. So just so that you know. So the next video is going to be on the boss fight and weapon part collection application. So anyway, I'm going to cut it short now. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. This is the first enemy. Later on we'll get to the other ones, but this is just the biggest hurdle to get over to get this ball rolling. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. All the project files and everything are up on my GitHub, so check the video description for the link so you can go and download the projects, so the graphics. And just so you know, I did get the graphic for BombMan off of Spriter's resource, but for some reason, I don't know if they updated it, but the strip that I have, it's not a strip anymore. It's actually a big green, that's a big area, and it's got like green in the background, and it's totally different. So you can try and edit that if you want in a paint program, or you can just go up to my project and get it before, because I got it before they changed them. Because I'm pretty sure that's where I downloaded it from, because I can't seem to find it anywhere else. So, that's about it. So stay safe out there. I'll catch you at the next video, which will be on boss fights, and it'll be either this week or next week, this coming week or the week after that it'll be out there. All right, stay safe. Good luck. Goodbye.